am 85 years old. I am sitting in an armchair by the window in an apartment that half this city would dream of owning. It has high ceilings. It is quiet here. The noise from the street doesn't reach me. The furniture is antique, pieces I spent months selecting. And there isn't a speck of dust on the shelves. My bank account allows me to hire the best doctors, order any food, buy any clothing. By modern logic, I am a winner, an icon of success. I owe nothing to anyone. I depend on no one. My freedom is absolute. And I have never in my life felt such a terrifying, icy cold as I feel right now.
I am not saying this so you will pity me. I don't need pity, and I hardly deserve it. I am saying this as a person who spent an entire life building a fortress, only to discover, once it was built, that I had walled myself in from the inside. I want to tell you how it happens, how one can spend a life chasing a mirage called independence and realize it is a lie only when their legs no longer hold them up. It didn't start with malice. It started with fear. When I was 25, I looked at my mother. She was a wonderful woman, but she was dependent. She depended on my father's mood, on his salary, on his approval. I saw how she asked him for money for new boots, justifying why the old ones were no longer good enough. I saw how she endured his shouting because she had nowhere to go with 2 children. I saw the light go out in her eyes, and right then, I made a vow to myself, an ironclad, unbreakable vow. I will never ask. I will never be in a position where my survival depends on another human being. At 25, that seemed like strength. It seemed like the only right path. I confused self-sufficiency with isolation. But I didn't know that then. I began to work like one possessed. I built a career at a time when women were still being told their place. I was tough. I was professional. I arrived first and left last. When I bought my first little apartment, I remember that evening as clearly as if it were yesterday. I closed the door, turned the lock twice, and slid down the wall, crying with happiness. This air belonged to me. These walls were mine. No one could throw me out. No one could tell me what to do. It's an intoxicating feeling, the feeling that you hold the reins of your own life in your hands. But this coin had a flip side, which I began to polish with the same diligence. I began to train people away from me. There were men. Of course there were. I wasn't a nun. Over my long life there were many relationships. I was vibrant. I attracted people. But none of them could tolerate my character for long. My reinforced concrete inflexibility, my absolute inability and unwillingness to listen. My principle was, they must listen to me. I am independent. I understand this only now, that every person has their own principles, their own interests, especially men, and you need to find common ground. You need to work on relationships, and somewhere you have to yield. At 32, I met Andre. He was an architect, a calm, steady man with warm hands. He loved me. And the most terrifying thing, he wanted to take care of me. I remember one time I got very sick. The flu, a fever near 40. I lay at home alone, delirious. Andre found out, came over, brought medicine, broth. wanted to stay the night to monitor my temperature. Do you know what I did? I kicked him out. I said, "Don't baby me. I can handle it myself. I don't like being seen weak." I saw the pain in his eyes. He didn't understand why I perceived his care as aggression, but I perceived it exactly that way. For me, accepting help meant admitting that I wasn't coping, and not coping was like death to me. We broke up 6 months later. He said a phrase to me at goodbye that I remembered my whole life, but the meaning of which I only understood just now. He said, "You are looking for a partner, but actually you only need a spectator. You want to live on stage alone just so you can be applauded from the audience." I laughed then. I thought, he's just weak. He wants to tie me to pots and pans. What a fool I was. I crossed people out of my life with surgical precision. Friends? I had a close friend, Lena. We'd been friends since school. Lena had a chaotic life. 3 children, a husband, eternal money problems, eternal renovations. She often called me to complain or ask for advice or just to cry. At first I listened. Then it started to irritate me. I looked at my perfectly organized life and thought, why can't she just pull herself together? Why does she eternally create chaos? I started avoiding her calls. I said I was busy at work. I said I was going away on a business trip. I stopped inviting her over because her children might break something or stain my perfect sofa. Gradually, the calls stopped. Lena died 7 years ago. There were so many people at the funeral they didn't fit in the hall. Her children were there. Grandchildren, neighbours, colleagues, some distant relatives. Everyone cried. Everyone remembered how she helped them, how she fed someone, how she let someone stay with her when they had nowhere to go. I stood off to the side in my expensive black coat, and inside me was emptiness. I realised that if I were lying in the coffin, the hall would be empty. A notary and a couple of former colleagues out of politeness would come. But even then, at 78, I didn't give in. I told myself, at least I lived as I wanted. I had peace. Peace. What a treacherous word. Do you know what peace looks like when you are over 80? It is a phone that stays silent for weeks. The only calls are spam or reminders from the clinic. It is holidays that are no different from weekdays. New Year's Eve is just a day when the TV is noisy, and you eat your dinner in complete silence, and the clatter of the fork against the plate seems deafening. It is fear. Sticky, primal fear that something will happen and you won't be able to call for help. And it happened. 3 years ago. I was 82. An ordinary Tuesday. I climbed up to the high shelf in the closet for an old album. Stupidity, I got dizzy, I fell. The sound of a breaking bone is a sound impossible to forget. The pain was such that I went blind for a moment. I broke my hip neck, a classic of lonely old age. I lay on the parquet floor in the hallway. The phone remained on the nightstand in the bedroom. It was 5 meters away. For a healthy person, 2 steps. For me, in that moment, an insurmountable abyss. I lay there for 10 hours. For 10 hours I watched the light change at the window, how a sunbeam crawled across the wallpaper, then dimmed, then greyness arrived, then darkness. In those hours all pride departs. In those hours all the husk of the successful woman flies off you. I thought about how if I died right then, they would only find me in 2 weeks when the cleaning woman came. I imagined it. My body on the floor, the smell, the flies. I screamed. But the walls in this house are thick, good, Soundproofed. After all, I chose such an apartment myself so as not to hear the neighbours. Now the neighbours couldn't hear me. I cried from pain and from humiliation. I soiled myself, lying on my expensive parquet. Here it is, the price of my independence. Here it is. The finale of my pride, lying in my own filth and praying to God that someone, anyone, might mistake the door. I survived by a miracle. I managed to hook the carpet runner and drag myself centimetre by centimetre closer to the bedroom until I was able to knock the phone onto the floor with a mop that stood in the corner. When the ambulance arrived, they had to break down the door. I remember the eyes of the young paramedic. There was no admiration for my interior design in them. There was pity. In the hospital, they asked me, "Who should we notify?" I said, "No one." The nurse asked again, "Absolutely no one? Children? Nieces or nephews? Old friends?" "No," I said. "There is no one." She put a dash in the box. That dash is the most terrifying verdict I have ever seen. It is the sum total of my life. A dash. After that, I recovered physically. Money works wonders. I have the best prosthetics, the best medicines. I walk, albeit with a cane. But I broke inside. Now I look at the world with different eyes. I go out to the park and sit on a bench. I watch mothers shouting at their children. I watch couples arguing over some nonsense in the store. I watch old people being led by the arm by grandchildren. And these old people grumble that they are being led too slowly or too fast. I want to go up to them, grab them by the shoulders and scream, "You don't understand. You are happy. You are alive." An argument is life. The necessity of compromise is life. Caring for someone who irritates you is life. All my life I avoided the word burden. I was afraid of becoming a burden, and I was afraid to take on a burden. But now I understand. A burden is exactly what love is. Love is when you cannot just leave because you need to feed someone. Love is when you don't sleep at night because someone has a fever. Love is chains. Yes, they are heavy chains that bind your freedom. But it is precisely these chains that hold you to the ground when the storm begins. Without them, you are just a balloon that flies away into the void and bursts there, unnoticed by anyone. I look at photographs of André. I found him on social networks. I learned to use a tablet. He died last year. On his page are photos, him with his wife, the one he married after me. Him with children, him fishing with a grandson. He looks old, tired, heavy-set. He's wearing a ridiculous Dhaka shirt, but he looks warm. And I look in the mirror. I look excellent for 85. Well-groomed skin, grey hair, styled. But I look like a marble statue in a cold museum. Beautiful, cold, and completely alone. Young people listen to me. I know that it is fashionable now to be independent. It's fashionable to say, "I don't need anyone. I choose myself. I am in my resource. Personal boundaries." These are all correct words, but poison is hidden in them if taken in too large a dose. Don't build walls. Walls protect from enemies, but they also don't let friends in. Don't be afraid to depend on someone. Allow someone to help you carry a bag. Allow someone to pay for you in a cafe. Allow someone to see you without makeup, with a face swollen from tears. Don't break ties at the first difficulty. Relationships are work. It is dirt, it is sweat, it is tears. It is the ability to forgive what seems unforgivable. I traded the warmth of a human body for the cold cleanliness of my apartment. I traded laughter and tears for silence. Right now, I would give everything. I would give all my savings, this apartment, this antique furniture. I would give it all just to sit right now in the kitchen with someone close. Even if we were drinking cheap tea from old mugs with chipped rims, even if this person grumbled at me, even if they demanded attention, just so I wouldn't hear the clock ticking, tick, tick, tick. Every second counts down time that cannot be returned. I am 85 years old. My life was a successful project, but as a human destiny, it is a failure. Please do not repeat my mistake. Call your parents while they are alive. Forgive your brother, even if he was wrong. Hug the person next to you, even if they snore at night or forget to close the toothpaste tube. Hold on to people. It is the only thing that makes sense. At the end of the road, when you are lying in the dark, it will not matter what position you held or how many countries you visited. Only one thing will matter. Is there someone's hand that you can squeeze in yours? I do not have such a hand, and that is more terrifying than death.